Hello and welcome back to another movie review. As always, my name is Kelly, and damn does it feel good to see Marvel on top like this again. Marvel had a lot riding on this film, not just because of the massive bombs that happened in 2023, but just in general, people feel like they're sick of the Marvel universe right now. It feels more like homework than something that we're actively enjoying, which is definitely not what we want from Marvel. Deadpool promised to be something kind of better than that, and for the most part, it succeeded. I'm not going to lie, I was really digging this movie in the theaters. I spent $35 after all, and I think I got pretty good worth out of that. This is going on a shelf. I put it behind me, but it literally is too big to fit on the lower shelf, so I had to put it on the top. And there is a lot to actually dig into this movie. I mean, I was laughing a lot. They're throwing jokes at you a mile a minute. So even if you're missing a couple of jokes, similar to like the Lego Batman movie, you're still laughing and you're almost always going to just, jump back onto the joke train once you're done. As well as the action is just spectacular. There's a little bit of shaky cam near the beginning, but there's a really good emphasis on just making this stylized and making sure that you can follow and understand all of it. Even when, like, in the opening sequence, they're doing some stuff that's kind of horrifying for a joke. But that's kind of what Deadpool has always been about, and it makes sense that they put so much emphasis on those two elements, the comedy and the action. And it's easy to see how well the team and Ryan Reynolds worked just to mesh this all together and make sure it worked. The acting from everybody is completely on point. Ryan Reynolds and Hugh Jackman have perfect chemistry together, and it makes you wonder why they haven't done this type of thing before, even though they kind of sort of did. And just to clarify, this isn't the same Wolverine from the other X-Men movies or Logan or anything like that. This Wolverine is wholly unique, but sharing elements with the other ones. And you really do feel for him by the end when he gets into his backstory, when they finally have that, as Deadpool said in the trailer, third act flashback. This is a very broken character, and he's trying to find some semblance of redemption. And by the end of this movie, I will just say he does get it. I'm not going to lie. I'm really looking forward to where they take this Wolverine moving forward, as they basically confirm that that's pretty much what they're doing. But they're not the only characters inside of this movie, because there's a lot of cameos inside of it. Some were spoiled by the trailers, some not. I won't talk about any specific cameos until we get to the spoiler section of this video, but I will say that every single one of them is used pitch perfectly. And the way that all of these cameos are utilized, it's basically a love letter to all of the Fox-era Marvel movies. But for all the praise I'm giving this movie, the one area I can say it probably didn't work as well as they thought was unfortunately the writing. I mentioned before that it's a joke a mile a minute. Unfortunately, that does mean that there are some dud jokes. The writing on this film is not bad. I do not want to make it sound like it's bad at all, but you can definitely tell that there were 5 writers on this film. And some jokes and ideas land a hell of a lot better in probably different versions of the script. Again, it's not bad. It just feels very cluttered. There feels like there's 2 climax battle endings to this. I mean, they're both great. They both do a lot of really cool visual stuff, but it does feel like at least one of them could have been cut and maybe saved for the next Deadpool movie. I mean, the whole ending just kind of gets dragged on for so long. Even Deadpool, turns to the camera and when they say, "Is this the end?" He's like, "No, but we're close. We're close. Just hold on to your seat for a second. We're almost at the end." Yeah, it's a funny joke, but at the same time, it really does feel like they acknowledge that this ending kind of just dragged. Also, if we're talking about negatives, I can say that probably the biggest negative are the villains. 2 of them. The first antagonist of the movie is a guy named Paradox. He works for the TVA. He's the one that brings Deadpool in and starts saying this timeline is dying and things. This character, I think, is the perfect summation of everything Loki tried to do. Again, I'm not hating on Loki, but they're trying to go for that Brazil, bureaucrat, office-style working environment. I feel Paradox was the first of those characters that really sold that home. And he is incredibly entertaining to watch. He is just mugging it up. He is pretty much the corporate suit inside of their analog for, I'm not seeing any profit in this timeline. I'm just going to give it a mercy killing and just call it good. He is very entertaining. And then he basically disappears from the film and the antagonist role shifts to Cassandra Nova once they're inside of the Void. And Cassandra Nova is evil for evil's sake. Like, there's really not much depth to her beyond that, but they did make her, like, creatively fun, entertaining. The way she goes about doing their stuff, like, not gonna spoil anything, it's creative, it's unique, and there's a lot of finger imagery that makes me think that someone watched My Hero Academia before writing this. I'm just saying. And both these characters would be fine as antagonists for this film. The problem is that it shifts between them. And Paradox, again, doesn't really show up until, like, the last act of the movie again. He makes, like, one call cameo between there. And it feels like these shouldn't be dueling. It should be one or the other. And the other one should just be more like a henchman or something like that. Like, Cassandra Nova was working for Paradox or something. It feels like because they're just at odds with each other that, again, feels cluttered. It feels like there's two versions of the script where one she was the antagonist and one he was the antagonist, and they're fighting for space. Unfortunately, to talk about anything more, I have to go into actual spoilers, so if you don't want any spoilers, here's the time code to skip to, just get to my final thoughts. But if you don't mind spoilers, let's move on. Continuing off of what I was going off, let's go into the negatives a little bit more. Cassandra Noble, I unfortunately feel like she was lacking motivation for what she was doing. When they're in the Void, I think she's fine. She's the king, she wants to be here, they acknowledge that she can leave whenever she wants, but this is what she wants. And then the end happens where she goes to Deadpool's world, and the climax, that whole street sequence that you see in the trailers, it's literally right there. She suddenly just says, okay, well, I'm going to destroy all timelines, and there's going to be nothing but the Void. But if you're destroying all timelines, doesn't that destroy the Void as well? I'm confused. Doesn't matter, it's just the multiverse has to end because that's where all of the stakes of all these go, and it feels forced. Again, Paradox's plan was to basically erupt this timeline because it feels like it's dead. Okay, well, how about just have the heroes try to save their timeline then? Why do we have to bring in the whole fate of the multiverse? It feels like an unnecessary escalation of things that even Deadpool acknowledges. Feels like it's just not happening. It's not good. Nobody likes this, except nice Deadpool, who will say nice things about anything. Yes, they actually say that in the climax of this movie. Deadpool turns to the camera and pretty much says, you know, this last phase of Marvel, it's out. Nobody likes the multiverse. Let's move on. And that would be fine if it wasn't necessarily doing the exact same thing it's complaining about. It feels kind of forced. It's the kind of joke that I didn't like in Deadpool 2. And unfortunately, that's just how the climax comes off. It would have been better if once they got out of the Void, Paradox becomes the big bad again. He keeps trying to activate his damn machine. They keep trying to stop him. And then, you know, something goes wrong and they have to do the climax they have. Like, you know, there's ways to basically just write Cassandra out and maybe save her for another movie where she does decide to finally leave the Void and maybe become this timeline hopping threat. I can see them working with that. She's interesting enough, and having her jump from movie to movie and maybe being this omnipresent threat for any of the emerging mutants and X-Men going in, I genuinely see a nugget of an idea there. But unfortunately, by the end of it, she's just another one of the many Marvel villains on the pyre who had potential to be recurring and just aren't. But other than that, the only really negative I have about it is that Deadpool's cast doesn't do anything in this movie. They're at the very beginning of the movie, and they're at the end where they're just in the same apartment, you know, haha, yay, everything's resolved. Like, why didn't they all show up for the final fight? Was it a budget reason? What was going on? Like, it felt like you had a pretty good opportunity for the timeline to fight for itself, but you didn't include your main cast of characters. I'm not saying everyone needed to be there, but I am saying that some of them should have been there. Like Negasonic and Kikyo. Why were they gone? So that I can give good context for this. The climax of the movie, basically, Cassandra goes to fiddle with this machine that's going to destroy all timelines, and she summons up an entire army of Deadpools from the void. And this is where you get a bunch of cameo Deadpools like Lady Pool, Head Pool, all those other guys. And as these Deadpools show up, and right before they're gearing for that final fight, Deadpool and Wolverine have a moment where they're like, "You with me? The chance to kill 110 of you? Count me in." Wouldn't that moment have been more fun if literally everyone was there? Colossus, Kikyo, Negasonic, the one snake-eyed Venom person who's hanging around Peter all the time. Like, literally have Deadpool's cast there and have them all eager to kill Deadpool and have Deadpool react to that. Like the joke writes itself. Maybe it was a budget thing. Maybe it was they wanted to save them for another Deadpool sequel. I don't know, but it felt like a missed opportunity of just not utilizing all the tools that you had for a movie that relies so heavily on cameos. And there are a lot of really great cameos like Blade, Elektra, Gambit, all these other ones. It does feel weird that they don't want to use any of their actual established characters. But honestly, those are kind of more minor nitpicks. We can talk about the good. And again, the good is that the fucking cameos were spectacularly well placed. I already mentioned Blade, Elektra, and Gambit. Like, actual Channing Tatum as Gambit. That is a deep cut of behind-the-scenes shit that if you know, you know. And you're just like... But then I think the best cameo they used inside of this is bar none Chris Evans with the perfectly placed bait and switch on who he's actually playing. The writing on the cameo side of things was masterful. This is a little in the member berries stuff, but at the same time, it does acknowledge that it's trying to give a lot of these characters an ending. There's actually a pretty not so subtle jab at pretty much Fox's management and just movie management in general and how they see these timelines, if you get my drift. Paradox wants to destroy it, not because it's actually dead, but because he doesn't see it as profitable. We're letting it have a slow death. We should just snip it off and kill it right now. It'd be the humane thing to do. But that's basically them acknowledging from a non-meta perspective that the exec is killing this because he doesn't see it as profitable, and he's only taking the one good thing out of it, Deadpool, and putting it in the other profitable thing, or thing he sees more profit in, Marvel MCU. Again, the movie acknowledges that MCU is not doing so hot right now, so you can really read into that all you want. Hell, you can even take it a little bit further with them bringing back Hugh Jackman as Wolverine. Like, we know that Hugh has wanted to do this for a while, so it doesn't feel as corporatized, but even Deadpool in the movie acknowledges they brought him back and they're going to make him do this shit until he's 90. But it does feel fitting that they're using these cameos not just as member berries, but to actually give conclusions to their story. Pretty much all the cameos utilized are dead by the end of this, other than Wolverine and, surprisingly, X-23. You saw her in the very last trailer if you didn't, but yeah, she's the only other confirmed one to have gotten out of the void. Everyone else got swallowed by the Loki smoke dragon snake monster thing. Which does suck, because I think you can actually bring Channing Tatum back as Gambit now, and it would actually really fucking work. But that's just more of a missed opportunity than anything else. Honestly, I could gush about everything good in this movie, and my negatives are much more minor nitpicks and nerd rage than anything really substantive. So in conclusion, I can basically say with whole heart that this movie is spectacular. It does have problems, and I do feel that if we're, again, ranking them, Deadpool 1 is definitely still better than this. It was tighter, it was faster, it was more emotional. Not to say that the feels aren't here, they are, but the focus of this movie is much more on the spectacle and the cameos and just the general meta commentary about plot lines and things. It's not as focused on doing hardcore character stuff. And that's fine. This was easily one of the funnest movie experiences I've had all year. But I won't go as far as say it's the best movie of the year or anything like that. It's definitely in my tentative top 10 of the year so far, and I doubt it's going to get knocked out. But I'd be hard-pressed to put it as top 5 or even top 1. So, with all of that said, my personal rating and verdict on this, I give this movie a solid 8 out of 10, with a recommendation that it's a must-see in theaters. It is genuinely a great time. The audience I went to was spectacular. We had fun. There wasn't a lot of disruption because people were just glued on the screen. Even if you're not really a superhero fan, or if you don't like the deeper lore inside of this, or even the acknowledgments to past movies, it is still going to be a fun time. Basically no alcohol required. Yeah, I know I stole that one, but whatever. And that's it for me. Did you enjoy the video? Have you seen Deadpool and Wolverine? Let me know what you thought about it in the comments down below. Let's get some healthy discussion going. And as always, if you like what you saw, like, share, subscribe, all that jazz, all those things that help big channel numbers go bigger. And that's it for me, so I guess I'll see you guys next time.